Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Angeles Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Angeles Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. Let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. I also want to give gratitude to Salvi Media. They're the founding sponsor of the podcast. They're a premier executive content agency dedicated to crafting exceptional content and strategies that elevate companies' brands and their executives. They're creators of the Emmy Award-winning CEO series. I think many of you have seen that. We've also featured one of my portfolio companies, Angeles Investors and Hallow, on their CEO series. And they've had in-depth interviews with CEOs talking about their personal journeys and business experience. The CEO series can be found on Cheddar, Entrepreneur Magazine, Reach TV, and really want to thank Salvi Media for their support of the podcast. You can also follow them on social media, as well as they have a podcast studio in Chicago. Join them as well. So again, thank you, Salvi Media, for making this podcast possible. Today, we have a very special guest, somebody I've known probably good 6-ish years or so, was a senior executive at the McDonald's Corporation and has some pretty diverse experiences in healthcare, where he's on the board of Northwestern Hospital and serves on the audit committee. In education, where he's on the board of trustees of DePaul University, great university out of Chicago. And if that's not enough, has his own great chain of restaurants, Burrito Parrilla Mexicana. So primarily on the west side of Chicago, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. And also serves on the board of Nuestro Queso. And I haven't tried that one yet, but definitely look forward to at some point. I'm a big fan of queso. So welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, Manny Favela. Welcome, Manny.
Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, hey, we can't wait to jump in. So many great things to cover. So, Manny, what we first like to do on these is start out with the leader and start out with you. So, Manny, if you could tell us a little bit about your life journey, a little bit about your career journey, and maybe how they've kind of come together, that'd be great.
Yeah, but absolutely, David. And again, thanks for the opportunity. I moved to the U.S. at the age of 14. My father passed away when I was young, and my mother, having a vision of bringing us all together so we could go to school and not have to split up, because we came from a very small town where if we needed to pursue education, we were going to have to travel somewhere else within Mexico. So she's like, we're all permanent residents. Why not move to the U.S.? And that way you guys can pursue an education and we can still be together. So that was 14 years old, came here without speaking any English, started high school. After high school, I went to community college like most people. And then after that, I went to college. I was the first in my family to ever attend college. Okay. Graduated in 1988 from UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago. Got my CPA in 1990. Right after school, I started working for a utility company for a couple of years. After I got my CPA, I interviewed with McDonald's. And that's where how the opportunity came about. Started as an internal auditor. And then I was quickly recruited into the international business because of the fact that I was bilingual, bicultural. And at that time, McDonald's was growing significantly internationally. When I started working in international, specifically with Latin America, we had...
And what year was that? Roughly what year was that, Manny?
That was 1992.
92, okay.
Yeah, right. But I started working in international accounting. And then 2 years later, I was recruited by the Latin America office down in Boca Raton, Florida, to kind of be the licensee controller for Latin America. From there, I went to Puerto Rico to be the controller for Puerto Rico, Central America, and the Caribbean. Then came back to Oak Brook as the finance director for Latin America, then became senior financial director, and then eventually became CFO in 2004. Until my retirement in 2016. So that was kind of my journey there. And then I retired because I was, I had 3 little boys and I was traveling too much and I wanted to be around for my kids. So I figured I've been blessed enough it's time to focus on, more meaningful things than managing a bottom line, and, just focusing on the compensation aspect of things. So that was when I retired.
Well, yeah, and then and that time frame too. I mean, you just roughly. I mean, McDonald. I mean, they had huge growth globally, right? But in Latin America, I think it exploded. I mean, that was a huge growth run for McDonald's in Latin America, right?
Well, I mean, just to put it in perspective, when I started working for Latin America, we had 80 restaurants, approximately 200 million in sales. When I retired, we had 2,500 restaurants, actually over 2,500 restaurants with sales over 5 billion.
Wow.
So it was quite a journey.
That's what I call exponential growth. And
There
you're
you
kind
go.
of at the purse strings of that. Well, that's great, Manny. And then so now and then you've also now done some different boards and stuff. So let's just walk through each of them and just check
Okay.
like how did you get connected? What's cool about the role and what? So let's healthcare, a lot going on in healthcare, amazing things, Northwestern. So how do you get connected there, and what's kind of what are you doing there?
Yeah, what happened is I met a gentleman that was actively recruiting board members for it was Central DuPage Hospital out of Warrenville. And he kept asking around. He was looking for some diversity, to bring some diversity into the board. And somebody recommended my name. I met with him. This was Bill Pollard, who was a titan basically in the business industry. He was one of the main founders of ServiceMaster.
Okay,
Okay,
that's right.
he was there for many years as a CEO. He wrote a lot of books. Well, he personally recruited me to Central DuPage. And with all these mergers in the hospital or in the healthcare industry, Central DuPage merged with Del Nor. Every time there is a merge, you drop half of the board from both organizations to create the new board. So I survived that. And then after that, we actually merged with Northwestern, which was much bigger, Northwestern Healthcare. So obviously, Northwestern had a lot of very high-profile board members, but regardless, they had to drop half of their board and allow for half of the other board, so that you can make up a brand new board. And I survived that as well.
You survived. You survived the both ones.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if you have one. What is 9 lives or 3 strikes you're out? But
Yeah,
hey, you keep surviving them, Manny.
and it gets even better. Then after that, when I retired from McDonald's, it triggers an automatic resignation. So because your role change and your level of influence changes. So I kind of had lunch with the president at the time, and I said, okay, well, it's been great. He goes, no, you're not going anywhere. We decline your resignation. So so then I stay there. So I've been serving in the hospital industry since 2007, I think. So it's been quite a number of years as a board member, and now I chair the audit committee for Northwestern.
Got it. Cool. And then you're also getting continue to get a deeper dive in the healthcare industry and all the amazing things. We've had different podcasts talking about what's going on there. So education, let's chat on education. Just maybe first just your general philosophy on education, and then now, serving on the board. Would love to hear kind of both how you got there and also just your philosophy on education. I mean, I know your mom's story and education and being the first,
Right.
like myself and many, but I would love to hear your thoughts there, Manny.
Yeah, well, after I retired, basically, I mean, I've always been an active member of my church. I'm actually on the board of elders of Wheaton Bible Church. So after I retired, I wanted to make sure that I focused the rest of my time, and I mean the rest of my time between now until we go to the next whatever the next chapter of our lives. And I figured that I would focus all of my energy on basically 3 areas, well, 3 or 4 areas: faith, number 1, number 2. The most important areas I think that touch everybody is healthcare, education, and private enterprise, which means hiring people and creating a work environment where people can thrive and you can create great opportunities for individuals. That's pretty much everything. Everything I do has to match one of those 4 areas. So that's why I always remain interested in, when the opportunity at DePaul came up, I immediately jumped on it because that addresses the educational side. And then obviously the healthcare, and then Burrito Parrilla Mexicana, which is our business, gives us the opportunity to employ almost 200 people. and make sure that we create an environment where they can succeed, and also provide him, hopefully good compensation and good benefits as well. So that's, I'm just focusing on, at this stage of my life, doing things that are meaningful, so that when I go, I can go with a smile.
Yeah, no, it's important, right? And it's like the legacy that we leave and all that. And so let's jump to Burrito Parrilla and maybe double click there, right? So, you've had this amazing career at McDonald's, you're on these different boards, and then at some point you decide, hey, I'm gonna jump into the restaurant business, and or what do they call it? Maybe more of a fast casual. Is that the right term for
Right.
it? I think
Yeah.
it's a notch above, in my opinion. Having eaten there multiple times, love the food. Can For those who are in the Chicago area or visiting West Side, we can Manny can give the specifics on where they're at, but mainly in the western suburbs. Amazing food. So what gave you the idea to get into the business? Because it's not an easy business, right? And then how's it been? I know you've been good success, but I don't want to steal the thunder. So let us know how it's been.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Burrito Parrilla project has been quite interesting. And the reason for that is that a friend of mine invited me to join him and create this concept. He has been in the restaurant space his entire life, but he also knew that I worked at McDonald's, and he's like, I'm great at the kitchen, I'm great in operations. Join me in this venture. I'll focus on operations, you focus on everything else. You can handle the finances, the accounting, the negotiations, technology, credit card processing, and you can do it from home, from whatever you want. And I said, yeah, I'll join you with only one condition: as long as our focus is not, just the bottom line. I don't want to focus on the bottom line, because when that's the focus, you end up squeezing everything else, including your employees, if you can. Our mission is not to, how little can we pay without losing our employees, to how much can we pay to keep them happy and engaged. Obviously looking for a healthy bottom line, because that's what will give you the growth, the ability to grow the business and create more opportunities for the employees. That was kind of the mission from the beginning. Obviously, we started with one restaurant. It was challenging at the beginning. The restaurant space is very, very difficult. So it's very hard work. But after one, the second one came, and the second one was more of a we changed the business model. We started from a strip mall kind of restaurant that is just dine in. The second restaurant had a drive-through. I convinced my partner to put a drive-through on it, and to make sure that we focus, because I know that the future drive-through will be a significant part of anything we do in the restaurant space. So he was very reluctant, but after opening the second one, was a big success, and then that became the model for every restaurant after that. Now we have 11 locations in the western suburbs, and 3 more in the pipeline. So.
Oh, still those three more being western suburbs, or any?
Yes.
Okay.
Still western suburbs. And with the growth opportunities is so great that there's no need, to break our heads and try to go far away and impact our lifestyle. At least not at this point. We can continue to open restaurants where we are, and keeping it, close by, and logistics easy, and to manage them that way. Eventually, we'll have to look beyond, but we'll do that when the time comes.
Yeah, that's great. And again, for those listening who are in the Chicago suburbs, get out there, give it a taste. It's great. I've had great experience there. And those who are visiting, come on, stop on by and check out Burrito Parrilla Mexicana. Okay, so thank you for that, the background on you, Manny, and then the business interests that you have. Now let's jump in a little bit to trends and tech and what you're seeing. So what are some of to our audience and listeners out there, what are some of the technologies, breakthroughs, exponential growth things that you're seeing that you think that they should be aware of?
Yeah. Well, obviously technology is here to stay, and it's got to be probably the growth engine for decades to come. And I look at tech and now AI, which is a new focus. It's pretty much the equivalent of the industrial revolutions back in the day, And when computers were first introduced, that disrupts kind of everything. So as a business owner, you have to always stay alert and keep your eyes open to how this technology comes into play in the business in which you're in. Obviously, technology will be, I see it a significant change in healthcare. Healthcare is still very traditional, and so is education. But technology is inevitably coming in.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of those industries are getting disrupted. They're going to get, it's coming. Yeah.
I mean, you look at healthcare and then, the role of robotics when it comes to surgery, because robots are a lot more precise when it comes to specific things. Obviously, it still requires doctors on the other side. So you use the knowledge of the doctors, but you use very precise equipment to conduct surgeries and reduce the number of mistakes, of human errors in the process. So that's going to continue to be huge in the hospital industry. But not only that, on the service side, customer service, scheduling appointments. You know how difficult it is to schedule an appointment, with a doctor nowadays.
Oh, it's painful. And then, then if you get blood work, they send it to somebody else, and then you don't know if they have it, and then it's just like, and there's all this, and then your records, they ask you questions about your records, and it's like, you should know I just had this surgery, and it's just like, oh man, it's a mess. It's a mess.
So when you talk about system integrations, right? When you have a centralized location for all records, wherever you go, the records are all there. You don't have to provide anything. And in Northwestern and a lot of these other hospital chains, they all use similar systems because there's only a couple of options out there, and they're all integrated. And as you merge with more hospitals, there's a huge need for integration and efficiencies and centralizing things. So I always say, centralize the stuff that doesn't touch the humans, and decentralize the stuff that requires human interaction. Yeah. That kind of applies to the healthcare space. It also applies to the restaurant space. It's a lot of technology in the restaurant space as well. When it comes to system integrations, when it comes to delivery companies, all of these things, if you don't, you have to bring it in to the one POS system that you have. Because if you don't have it integrated, and you've seen it, I'm sure, when you go to restaurants, you see all these tablets that are going off, on and off, and beeping all day long. Well, that's when you're not integrated. That's what happens. You got, order receipts coming up everywhere with different fonts, looking differently, some very long, some very short. And the cooks are just going crazy because they got all these different tickets that show the same items in different ways. So a lot of technology in the restaurant space that is coming. A lot of very useful technologies, also a lot of very useless technology. You have to be smart about what your concept is and what it means, if you focus on efficiency, so if you focus on customer service. Some restaurants like McDonald's, it's all about efficiency. Yeah. But you don't expect to get an extraordinary customer service experience, when you're eating in a McDonald's restaurant. But restaurants like ours, we focused a lot on on the interaction and making people feel comfortable, welcomed, and giving them a happy, pleasant experience. So the role of a lot of AI and technology is not very relevant because customers don't go there to talk to a robot. They go there to talk to a human and to be served. So you have to really look at your business and your business model and see what image you want to maintain and what role technology can play. In the back of the house, there's a lot of options for technology, right? For efficiencies. There's a lot of options in accounting. You can integrate your banking, your payroll, your accounting system, and it can all come together and create a lot of efficiencies where instead of 5-6 different people doing accounting, you got 1, 2, or 3 at the most. So that's a lot of that. AI also, when it comes to restaurants as well as the hospitals, when it comes to reviews, responding to reviews. And it's not just about using AI to respond, with a robotic response. No, you can include your culture into AI. So it's a reflection of you coming out and you control the messaging and to say what you wanted to say. But, when hospitals are looking at social media, reviews, responding, connecting with customers, advertising, who to advertise to, when they're close to the restaurants, when they're not. there's also a lot of technology coming into analyzing traffic flows and how, now with cell phones, there's all these companies that track, foot traffic, who's going where, who's not going to your restaurants, and where are they going instead. Who are you losing to? Who are you gaining from? All of these different things. And I just got to believe that there's so much of that. Obviously, you have to focus on what's important to you, but there is options for everything. So that's just starting. And, it's going to be even more and more relevant as time goes by. But if you don't get on the bandwagon, then, you lose your edge and you become obsolete, and, young people don't want to be there because you just don't, you feel old. And you got to reflect, the current reality and move with the times. And we try to do it as much as we can.
Yeah, no, and I think you have a great way of looking at it, right? You got to look at it like across all functions, right? The back office, front office, how you're interacting with, how you're responding to customers, how you're getting data on demand, and and it's changing fast, right? So you got to also just kind of keep up with going on, see who's doing what are some of the best practices out there as well. But I remember this was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I saw something that they were piloting in White Castles, right? Just the robots, flipping burgers and stuff like that, right? So I think you'll see more and more of the, call it, repetitive type tasks that these robots can take on. And then in Austin, right, they just did the robo taxi.
Oh yeah.
And so now your there'll become a point where DoorDash gets delivered to you by a humanoid robot, right? 24/7. And so there's and this is and that's an exponential growth curve, right? Because right now it's just barely happening, right? But that stuff, it's going to come. It's just a matter of when, and when it's going to come fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. So those are some of the cool trends. Thank you for that. Now the other thing we talk, like, how do you best invest, right? So you've got, you've got it from a corporate perspective, from call it a startup perspective, from a board perspective. So with all these trends that are going on, just what should our listeners think about just how they should invest and best position themselves for investing in times of exponential growth?
Yeah, I think this is one of the challenges, David, because at the same time, there's so much opportunity, so much growth. What do you focus on? And one of the things that I always look at is, what is relevant technology and what is just noise? Because even as a restaurant owner, I sit here, we get bombarded with so many things and so many offerings, but 70% of them are irrelevant. And then you also have to be careful. How many monthly fees do I add to my P&L? Okay, because
yeah. How many tools do you need?
I always tell everybody, I said, look, if it was free, I would take them all. But because they're not free, I got to take just the ones that at least generate more benefit than what they cost me. And quite honestly, a lot of times they call these loyalty programs and this and that, again, that will be great. But I really focused on providing great food, because people will come to the restaurant because of great food, not because of what they hear on social media. They may give you a try, but if the food is not good, they're not coming back.
That's right.
So out of all these technology options, what is relevant? And even when you're talking about investing, the one thing I always do is, okay, yes, this technology sounds great, but what will it do? Really? I mean, how will it improve a business? How will it improve the profitability of the business? How will it really improve sales and growth? Because a lot of things, like I said, sound great. And they're, you can look at Facebook. Well, what is Facebook going to do for my business other than advertising? It's not going to do anything. That's more of a social media thing. And within all these options, and every time we go to we go listen to a pitch, my first question is, okay, where do I see this 5 years from now? And what industries is this going to be in? And what benefit will it bring? Financial benefit, not just a cool thing. Because a lot of times you get systems that help you stay engaged with your employees. This is that. Okay, well, how is that going to improve the P&L? How is it going to improve sales? Or it's not. Oh, okay. I'm all for having big meetings with my staff and everybody hugging each other, but that's not going to change the business, right? So I think that's kind of where you do. Same thing, whether you look at it from a board point of view or an entrepreneur point of view, is you always have to look at what's the cost, what's the benefit, and what will it change in the business. Is it going to make it more efficient? Are we going to go from 20 people to now 10 people because it's going to make the work easier? Or are people just going to be happier doing what they do? Well, one gives you benefits, the other one doesn't. So I always try to look at the relevancy of all these options. Restaurant, there's, even in the restaurant space, people always, introduced all of these new tools that will help you become more profitable. Well, who doesn't want to be more profitable? Everybody does. But then when the question comes up, how? Well, you can look at your efficiencies. Like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. How will it reduce energy cost? Unless you give me something that monitors the energy consumption. But just looking at it, at the total of the invoices, it's not going to do anything for me. How will it reduce the labor? Unless you give me a scheduling system that allows me to track, how many people I need at different times of the day. Anything else other than that is not going to bring benefits. So I always try to look at, the details behind the technology solution and whether it goes deep into the organization to change something inside versus just adding, more communication and more things. And I think that's usually when I look for investing in companies in tech. That's kind of what I look for. Where is it? What will it change?
Right, and then that kind of that 5-year horizon, kind of really thinking through what it's going to be like. Okay. Leadership is the last part, right? So exponential growth talks about trends. How do you invest? And then how do you lead? And it's, I think about it, you've led through one of the largest companies in the world and head of a global role. You're on the boards of different industries. And then you've also got kind of startup experience, right? Which is a little bit different leaddership muscles, right? And then now you put all this change that's happening, right? What do you think from a leadership perspective? What takeaways would you give to our folks in leading in times of exponential growth?
Yeah, I think when it comes to leadership, the most important, there's two things that always come to mind. One is trust. Your subordinates or your employees need to feel that you care about them and that you got their backs. Because in absence of that, you don't have that relationship. And when there is no trust, there is no commitment to the organization. And then clarity of expectations is the other thing. What I always try to do when I go to restaurants, and I even did this with McDonald's, because I had the entire finance function for all of Latin America, which is thousands of people. And then you had technology reporting to me. I had development reporting to me, and I had franchising reporting to me. So there were huge numbers of people. Obviously, you focused on their leaders, but I would always make sure that they always understood what was important to the senior leadership and what was acceptable, what was not acceptable. Gray areas allow for a lot of different interpretations. Yeah. We do not allow any type of corruption. We do not allow any illegal activity. We do not, and if you come across anything, we need to know the minute you find out. And if you tell me to do something, you do it, because you don't have time to be monitoring everybody. As an entrepreneur, you don't have time to monitor all of your employees. And as a leader in a large organization, you don't have time to be looking at all of your employees. So clarity of expectations is key. Them trusting you is key, because when things get tough, that's when people will respond on whether they're committed to you or not, and whether they trust you or not. If things get difficult, they will beat you up. if they don't trust you and they don't like you. If things get difficult, they'll go out of their way to support your initiatives and to make you look good. And I've always learned that we went through the largest franchising transaction in McDonald's history in Latin America. And I spearheaded that entire initiative. And it required a lot of work, because being the CFO, when you franchise, we franchised all of Latin America to one, or almost all of Latin America to one entity, which in McDonald's world, that was never even heard of or even contemplated. But because of the economic volatility, it made sense to bring it all together, because if one country is struggling, the total was still healthy. But bringing it all together and then looking for potential buyers, and then creating a data room with almost 20 countries, in countries like Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, which are very complex, creating a data room, and bringing all this information together to make sure that everything was there, transparent, and that everything was in order financially, was a monumental task. And, I went to my, and it needed to be done quickly. And I went to my employees and I said, look, this is a big ask. Your weekends and nights are going to be gone for the next month or so. But because of the relationship I had with the team over the years, they said, just tell us what you need, and we're doing it for you. We're not doing it for McDonald's. We're not doing it for, if you need it, just tell us. And sorry about that. Let me just turn this off. We did incredible things that would normally take 3 months to put together. We would get them done in a couple of weeks, and people were shocked. And I said, look, it's not me. It's the people. These guys went out of their way, and they work nights, they work weekends, because they were very proud of the organization that we built, and they wanted to close this thing, on a high. And I always said this when your relationship gets tested always when things get difficult.
Yeah. When things are going well, it's all great.
Everybody's happy. Yes.
Yes. It's when things go south, when you find out, who really trusts, or, the trust that you built and the real relationships there.
And that happens all the time. And that's when leadership really, really kicks in. And again, if you're an entrepreneur, it's the same way. Employees need to know what's important to you. And I tell my employees, look, you guys have the freedom to address any customer needs. You can give free food if you think it's the right thing to do. You can give extra condiments. If they ask you for extra salsas, don't get cheap. A couple of dollars, it's not enough to make a customer feel unwelcomed. And you lose thousands of dollars in business because you're being cheap a couple of dollars for condiments. And I say, but when they understand that, they do it without any fear of being reprimanded later. And I said, look, I'll never blame you for anything. If you make a mistake, I'd rather just say sorry and move on and take the risk than hesitate, don't take the risk, and then you end up upsetting customers. But you need to tell them that, because in absence of that, they come from other restaurants where they're very cheap on condiments, or they're this or they're that. And that's the culture they come from, and that's what they normally do unless they hear otherwise.
Yeah. So it's like there's the trust, and then there's expectations, and the expectations is clarity on the roles, clarity on what you expect, clarity on how you're going to measure them, and then there's just ongoing, and they're also related, right? I think when you have the right expectations with clarity and you live to those values, right, it builds trust, and then and I think in that model, it doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter how much technology and changes and things that are going on, right? In the essence, right? Humans are building trust with one another in your workforce, right? And they're always going to need continuous clarity on expectations, right? And I think it's a great model for those who are listening to think about how you lead and the trust that you're building with your team and your customers and your stakeholders. And are your expectations clear, right? And that's right. It's not just a one and done. Both of those are ongoing things, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you have to be careful because trust can be broken in a minute. If you always tell people, we care, we love you, the employees are the best, we're a people company, are people the most important thing. And then all of a sudden it comes time to downsize. And all of a sudden, all these things go out the window. So you have to always, you have to walk the talk. Because if the two don't match, then all the trust goes out the window. So
right, and you built it up over time. So, well, hey, Manny, excellent. So thank you for kind of sharing those exponential growth perspectives across your journey, leadership, investments, trends. How do people stay connected with you and get more information on Burrito Parrilla and follow you on social media?
Yeah, no, the best tool I think for that is probably LinkedIn. I don't. I very seldomly go into Facebook and Instagram only because I find myself wasting a lot of time and not being very productive. So that's not. I probably not. It's probably not an effective way to get a hold of me because it might take weeks for me to even realize that somebody's trying to connect. But LinkedIn, I think it's a professional environment, and it's all my information is there, and it gets very easy to connect. You can write to each other, and if you want to take it further, you can exchange the phone numbers and emails. So LinkedIn for sure.
And then website is what, burritoparrilla.com, or what's the website?
burritopm.com.
burritopm.com. So check them out. Check them out.
And they can always send me an email through there. I get all the emails from Burrito, regardless if they point it to a restaurant or to management in general. I get 100% of them. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I love it. Look forward to my next trip and visit there. Manny, thank you. I know you got a lot of things going on. Thanks for making it a priority to come on the Exponential Growth Podcast. Look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's always a pleasure.
All right.
Take care.